everyone. This is Kayla Wong, Festival Director for the Asian American International Film Festival, and we are so happy we are on our last day of the festival. Finally, day 11. Here we are. I'm also quite honored to be joined today by our Made in New York filmmakers. These are short films that are about the diversity and beauty of New York. We go from talking about immigration and like inter-community relationships to the struggles of commuting and nightlife. So we've got a really good range of stories, and I hope y'all were able to see it because we're going to talk a little bit about it today. Before we go, I do want to thank our sponsors for this program. We have Lunar brand hard seltzer, which you can get right now off a tap room. We have a discount code somewhere in the chat probably for you to get 10% off until today, AIFF10, to get 10% off this new hard seltzer. And we also want to thank the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment for their continuous support through the years, as well as Yao King for being a champion of independent Asian Pacific Islander cinema. We also want to thank our community partner, Bubble Tea, who's actually featured in one of our films today. So, also, if you have any questions for the panelists, please pop it into the comment section. We are live on Twitch and Facebook, so pick your poison, and we will try to ask those questions at the very end if we have any time remaining. So let's go around and introduce ourselves. Name, your film, and which borough you're repping. I'm Kayla, and I'm in Queens.
Hey everyone, I'm Alexandra Cuerdo. I directed the film Dancing on My Own, and I'm repping Brooklyn, Bushwick specifically.
Nice. Go.
I'm Snigdha, and I am the director and cinematographer of there, and I am in Jersey City, very close to New York.
West New York. Yeah, some call it.
Hi everyone, my name is Leah, and I'm the writer, producer, and actor of there. And I'm currently in Bombay, India, so nowhere near the boroughs, but we shot there.
Hi, my name is John, and I directed and wrote and produced Cupcake Dad, and I'm in Hell's Kitchen, representing Hell's Kitchen in Manhattan.
Nice.
And I'm Chris Lowe. I directed Black Ghost Sun, and right now I'm in LA, but I'm from Brooklyn originally.
Awesome. A lot of Brooklyn over here. Well, cool. That is the New York part of this block. We're done with that. Let's talk about the films and a little bit about, I think we've all had a chance to watch the films at this point, seeing it's the last day of the festival. But if you can do a little bit about your film and perhaps how it came about, what inspired you, why you thought it was something that had to be made. You start with Ali.
Okay, well, my film is about this really fun queer Asian dance party called Bubble Tea. It was founded by 5 of my close friends after the election, and it was created sort of as a space to, have community at the end of the day. So I am so happy to be part of this community as well. I identify as queer, and I'm Chinese, Filipino American. So for me, a lot of making this film felt like coming back home. It was part of, a grant program through a company called Visco, known very much for the Visco Girls movement, but also a really incredible company that's been championing progressive causes, specifically diverse filmmakers. So Visco financed it, and we were able to film a 4-story rave. I came out to my mom on camera. It's an exciting film if you haven't seen it, full of joy and a little bit of stress, and it's my own personal story of coming out, sort of interwoven into the story of this really beautiful, sparkly community called Bubble Tea.
Yes, oh, that's a lot of struggle and heartache right there. watching the first few minutes, I was just like, oh, flashbacks to my own learning to drive experience. Hi, Mom. Not that it was great. I can drive now, but
yeah, no, it was a fun movie to make, but it was, it's like every experience. There's highs and lows. Talking with my mom was it was surreal. It's always interesting being sort of like a first gen kid and having to deal with your parents that are really from, in many cases, another place, and so you kind of have to meet in the middle. And so I was really lucky to be able to do that with this movie.
yes. Let's go to team there.
Snigdha, do you want to start or should I? Okay, me.
Yeah, you should start since it's your story.
So it's semi-autobiographical and basically based on the idea that there's so many of us in kind of this identity limbo, but like between being like immigrants, but also trying to assimilate, to the culture that we're in. So me personally, I'm from India, born and raised, but I went to America for school and like I worked. And especially with the visa and immigration system, there are these weird situations you're put in where you have to basically choose between family and career constantly. Like I lost my grandmother in 2014 and I had to experience it over the phone because if I left New York, I wouldn't be able to come back unless I had a job to come back to, like these weird rules. So it just basically, it's kind of, you keep kind of questioning what you really want and why you want it. And just always your identity in question in terms of like nationality and where you belong. Now let's make the talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, first off, thank you, Asian CineVision and Asian American International Film Festival for giving us the opportunity to share our film and even talk about it. Just like what Leah said, I think I was drawn particularly to the bond between these two characters, the store manager and the customer. There were two aspects that really spoke to me, which was the contrast between the both of them and their financial and immigration status. Like there was a contrast, and yet that's what connected the two of them. Opportunity to explore the caste divide that also exists in the Indian culture. And the other thing was that I found intriguing to explore was the concept and the idea of home, what that really means, and by the end of it, being okay not knowing what that actually means.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I think you all do a really good job of really highlighting this the bureaucracy of our country here, as well as really hitting it into a very emotional and personal arena. And I saying earlier, I was trying not to. Well, actually, all these films, I was like, I cry a lot, but I was like, oh, this is too much for the morning after I had to rewatch them before this. I was like, oh man, too much about my own family. And but yeah, thank you team there. Let's go to Chris.
Hi, Black Ghost Son is a film about a Chinese American father who has a black son, and it's based largely on my cousin's life. And when I found out about his sort of family situation, I felt like I needed to make a movie about it because it just really struck me, and I think there's some really complicated and nuanced dynamics between these two ethnic groups, particularly in New York, and it's something that I don't think is often acknowledged or talked about. And yeah, just wondering how it must play out in their lives and in the larger context of their whole family. I don't know, it was intriguing enough that I felt like even people that fall outside of these ethnic groups and people that may not share that experience would be interested in taking a look at their lives. Yeah.
Yeah, so another a film inspired by true to life things in your own personal experience. Yeah, that's really a fascinating topic that I want to delve into a little bit more later. John, is Cupcake Dad about your own aspirations and struggles with cupcakes?
Yes, that pretty much summarizes it. Hi, everybody. Yeah, it's about an absent father who just feels a lot of pressure, to balance life and being there for the family. And it's special to me because I did get to make it with my son. So that's my 6-year-old son, and so it's basically a documentary. Like basically, no one had to act because we were just playing our own real life roles. And yeah, it's just about a lot of pressure that you feel as a Korean American, immigrant coming to the States, and you're getting hit from all sides in terms of pressure, whether it's the New York City ethos of kind of making it, and then your parents telling you to make it, and then trying to balance 3 children in the city. And so so it's basically a day in the life of an absent father.
Yes, and in New York, who has to deal with commuting. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense now that is your son. It was like, your relationship was so great on film that I was like, who is this kid? I need more of him. But yeah, since you're touching on that, all these films actually discuss themes of family and like parenthood. I think is a big topic that we could talk a lot about. In specifically Cupcake Dad, I guess, like you mentioned how the father figure is both facing pressures from his own parents, right? And like how you hear the phone calls and like their ideas of success are being placed on him, and he's just trying to be a good son. But the takeaway from that is that how does that then affect his own ability to be a good father? And so I guess I want to talk a little bit about just like being Asian parents and like what we feel like that kind of is right now, maybe as people who are as both children of immigrants or otherwise, how that plays into our stories. Yeah, so since we haven't talked to Ali, we can talk to you right now for yes, how in Dancing on Your Own, I think you're touching on that as how your mother, isn't necessarily
Yeah,
she
I mean,
in the end,
tough.
I was like,
I mean, yeah, if we want to talk about parenting,
yeah,
I mean, the reality of it is that it's tough, right? It's one of those things that the relationship between a parent and a child is always so tough. And I think specifically for me, I can only speak from my experience, but for me, I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, went to predominantly white schools. And for a long part of my youth, I was sort of the representative Asian, if that makes sense. So there was a lot of conflict there when it comes to, what does it mean to even be Asian American? And embracing that identity was very difficult for me when I was younger, because I think I didn't have that many friends that were Asian American. I had family members, but it wasn't totally the same thing when you don't really see yourself anywhere else. And so, for me and my relationship with my mom, a lot of it was like, oh, well, I want to do all the things that the other kids get to do. I want to be able to live with those freedoms. I want to be able to, not get an A on the test. I want to be able to have those like really weird Lunchables. Like,
yeah, right.
Looking back now, you're just sort of like, really? I wanted that instead of garlic fried rice? Okay.
Yeah.
And like that, and it's just so funny. It's like hindsight is 2020. And for me, so I realized that like so much of me trying to figure out who I was when I was a kid, my mom was also trying to figure out who she was, as an American. And so it's funny when you realize, like for me at least, the older I get, the more I understand my parents. And the more I understand that what they went through was immense. It was an immense change. It was so much sacrifice. And like, I remember one of the other teams, here was talking about even just immigration, even just that issue, that process of getting a visa, and all of it is, and my parents have sponsored family members. I mean, it's a real intense, commitment, honestly, and it's a really messy process right now. So I don't know. It's just interesting because like parenting, I think there was a time in high school, and I'm sure we all felt this way, where we were like, my parents, if only, they were more whatever, they were more something else that they weren't. And looking back, it's like, I wouldn't have it any other way, but like I said, hindsight's 2020, and I am not a parent yet, but maybe John, you can talk to what it's like from the other side.
Yeah, no, it's crazy during, especially during COVID, and I just have a lot of respect for teachers, a lot more this past year. And I think parents in the city, they don't really get to rest for like 18 years. Like they basically don't get to sleep for 18 years.
More, yeah. Sometimes.
And they can come home, I suppose, after that too. I totally resonate with what you're saying with that high school experience that you're saying, Allie, and kind of wishing you had a different set of parents, the kind of parents that maybe you saw on TV or a sitcom or something, where they ate dessert, cupcakes and American pies or something like that. And
they said, different. I love you. I don't know.
Yeah, they hug each other like in sitcoms in the beginning of sitcoms. Yeah.
But it's so funny, and I don't know how how everybody else feels about this. Like, what did your relationships with your family inform the way you made these films? I mean, it sounds like I know for for the other team, you were saying that choosing between career and family. I mean, God, that is so heartbreaking, because that's a choice I feel we should never have to make. But I think we're all asked that way too much. And what was that like?
So it's interesting. So when I came to America, I was 17, and I was very much like, I'm going to live here and stay here for the rest of my life. Like, I think I'd watched too many movies and TV shows and was just sort of obsessed with this sort of vision of it. And I was like literally dead set on living there. And then this one incident with my grandmom, like it just changed my whole perspective. And I was like, do I really want to stay millions of miles away? Like I take pride in my work, but like, who am I working for? Like, I want to be around the people I love. And so it shifted my perspective entirely. And then from then on, I was like, no, I don't know if I necessarily want to live here, but I want to work here. But even just working temporarily, so many issues visa-wise with that. So for me now, like now I'm back in Bombay, and I want to have a mix of both, because I really, really value like the Indian culture now. Like I feel like after going to America, I valued it more. Like I was still like not against it, but just like not identifying. But after I went to college and even just, around non-Indians, I'm like, wow, like I really, really appreciate this now. So that's how I feel. I don't know about you, Snigdha.
Yeah, taking a step back sometimes gives you perspective. Yeah. Yes, Snigdha, you were muted. Thank you.
Oh yeah, got it. I'm not sure, parenting or my take on staying away, or.
Well, yeah, we've kind of trailed over somewhere. I don't even know if we're still talking about films. We're still talking about your films and how parenthood or just family plays a role in these films. And I guess maybe if you can talk a little bit then on how that became the central focus of this particular project.
Yeah, I think just like what Ali mentioned about understanding your parents gives you so much of lightness, like their perspective gives you perspective in a way. So when you move away from what you call home or what you were used to calling home, and you move away from there, I'm still like trying to think about what home really means, because I'm actually on a dependent visa right now due to a lot of factors. That's a lot of like immigration stuff that Leah also mentioned that I'm going through right now, and I never understand where I really belong. whether it's here or it's India, I'm not sure. So that's a constant question that I keep asking about where I want to be. And that's a constant battle too, which is why sometimes I don't want to think about it. I just completely avoid thinking about it, which is also, I realized as I thought about parenting, a lot of these topics or something that gets uncomfortable the moment you start talking about them with your parents, they're like, oh, no, everything is fine. That's the part of like, I've seen it with Asian culture generally. When I speak to my other Asian friends, it's almost the same thing they talk about and they share with me. The moment you start like asking these uncomfortable questions, they're like, no, you'll be fine. Just like big generic statements, but you kind of understand why they are the way they are, and their generation was just different. So just understanding that gives you a more mature understanding of what parenting means. And I'm not a parent yet. I'm writing about my film is primarily about parenting. So I've been thinking a lot about these things, which is why when you ask me like, whoa, that's a Pandora of like a lot of emotions and like things that I'm already working on. But yeah, it's always like, I would always call it a understanding of perspectives, and not probably like we think overanalyze certain things too much, but sometimes it helps in analyzing certain things because you understand a bit about your identity, your patterns, and that can help you define your work better.
Yes. Yeah.
I just wanted to add that, which I think will be applicable to all of us, is that I didn't really think about like the interdependent culture as much as I did when I came to America. Like we have all Asians, like we have sort of that background of that interdependentness, and you don't really think about it until you're not in it. And at least with me, like I really, really value it, and I want my future. I'm not a parent yet, but I want my future kids to have that sort of basis, whether it be in America or like going to school in India, but still having that culture connection.
I agree completely with that. And I think it's so funny. I never really thought of that as an Asian trait, this kind of center point on community and togetherness and interdependence. But in Filipino culture, there's a word for that, and it's called bayanihan. And it basically means that like we are all part of a collective, we're all in this together. And how do we kind of, how do we do things sort of for the greater good in a way? And I think it's really interesting because it really related to my film. And, you know, the cool thing about the dance party that, you know, we all do is that it's a Pan-Asian dance party, you know, and even beyond an Asian dance party, it's the tagline is where Slasians rule, but everyone is welcome. And really that, you know, I think that kind of encapsulates the same spirit of inclusivity, you know, and the same spirit of, you know, we all gather and we all can commune together and sort of create this safe space in the midst of a world that, I mean, as everyone knows, 2020 has been like a hot dumpster fire. You know what I mean? Like it's really been very difficult for all of us, I think, just to kind of get through the day. So anything that we can do to kind of connect to our values and connect to, you know, who we are as people, I think that is only a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think that that's something that we're really focusing on this year is just like how do we stay connected, you know, in these times? How do we continue to help each other and support each other, both in like us here right now as artists, but also like as communities, providing resources and just like sharing thoughts. And so, you know, I think specifically in this block, well, this kind of shifts over to what I wanted to ask Chris, was about your film, which is about a Chinese father who has a son who presents as Black. I guess, you know, you're saying that this is based off of your cousin's story, but in terms of how you think that this, I guess in terms of like the reception and how you want this film, like who's the audience for it, I guess, and like what do you feel like people, what are you hoping that they would get out of watching this film?
I suppose the audience for this that I had in mind was really just a general audience. In particular, I suppose for anybody that falls outside of these ethnic groups, if you're not Chinese or Black, to just become aware that there are certain racial dynamics at play between all these subgroups in the country, but in New York in particular, because often the context in which we examine race is, that ethnic group and how they interact with white people in general. And there is a whole nother subset of dynamics between every other ethnic group, and it's very complicated, and that there are different types of racism out there. We experience different types of racism, and I don't know. That was, I think, one of the key things about the film in my mind. And then just acknowledging that people have these experiences in New York, and these are people that may cook your food or deliver your food or have any other number of professions that we take for granted. I think less so now that we've had this pandemic and people are acknowledging that people that run our grocery stores and deliver our food and everything are so valuable, and understanding that they have full, deep, complicated lives themselves, and not just taking them for granted.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, just being a person, right? It's hard. Being a person or being a parent is hard, and being a parent to someone who might not necessarily have the same life experiences as yourself is particularly difficult. Like, I can't imagine, your character is struggling with not just like raising a child, but also unable to perhaps figure out how he can keep his child safe, and or like to help guide him in his life. And I feel like at the heart of that emotional drive point is what really, I think, is going to open this film up to like the communities that you're saying, like anybody can really access this, and I think it starts a conversation about just like how do people, you don't know what anyone's life is like, right? And like, let's ask these questions, let's try to get to know each other, and let's be a little like sympathetic or just like compassionate, right? Okay, a question that I also want to get to is about New York City as a character and how it plays into all of your films. Seeing as this is our made in New York block, and they're all set in New York, but I also feel like it has a very distinct flavor and is played very differently in all of your films. So I'd love if we could expand on that. We can start with Team There. Haven't heard from
Snigdha, you want to take this away?
Yeah, you go first. Let's go.
Okay, there's so much. I think one of the first experiences after I moved here was, so chai is such an integral part of our culture. I didn't even know that I loved chai until I moved here. Probably a month into moving, I'm like, we didn't have a burner at home, and we had the stove top. I couldn't make good chai, and then I would just like walk out of my home, find these little cafes, restaurants, and then I discovered chai latte or like chai tea, and I couldn't find it. So I would end up going to Indian streets either in New Jersey or Indian streets in Manhattan, and I would still, not find chai the way I, used to have it at home, but it was a sense of familiarity, the sense of connection that I had that made me feel some sort of warmth. And I think in the film, that's what we wanted to project, the sense of familiarity that brings us to the bond of the shopkeeper and the protagonist, Leah's character, Ria. And they do bond over chai. So that was like, I feel when you're anxious, you're always looking for a sense of, you're looking for grounding. And I think we used that location, even like in the terms we visualized it, everything, the camera movement was also shaky, but every time she's with the shopkeeper or the grocery store manager or in that area, it's always more steady and more calm. So that was the definition of home, and how we used the location as home.
And even the location, I actually shopped there. Like when I lived in New York, like it's an Indian store, but
Yeah.
like I used to buy my Indian stuff from there. And it's like small inside things, like speaking of the chai. So chai literally just means tea. So in America, when you say chai tea, you're literally just saying tea. So it's like even when it's like a little inside joke when she speaks with the shopkeeper, because that's what we actually sort of joke about in Indian culture.
Yes, chai tea. Yeah. Yeah, that was a cute one. Cute moment when she's like, here's my chai tea, and like, yeah, this is yeah. Let me see, John.
Yeah, I mean, New York City is a character in my film. It represents a bit of an antagonist, right? It's on the side of the main character's managers, right, who are like always striving for yet another large payday. So it's constant, this restless, trying to make more, versus really the child, and so everything kind of confronts, it's like the look of a child that's feeling a bit neglected versus, the muscle memory instincts of trying to make more money, and that's kind of where the clash is coming from a bit. So yeah, New York City definitely is a character for sure.
Yes, main antagonist for sure. I just like love seeing the outside world again. And like, oh, trains, and oh, I remember those days of having to calculate, is running those 20 blocks faster or taking the train one stop? Like, okay, let me like do that quick math, and you even had it shown visually, which was really clever. It's like this feels like New York. I get the anxiety from it. I get all of it. So thank you, and well done.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, watching clips of it recently, it definitely is strange. It's like very alien to look at a boardroom with people not 6 feet apart, and it's like from another era. It feels like, and although it was just last year.
Oh yeah, when they are sharing those cupcakes, I was like, no,
That's right. Yeah.
Where's your glove? Put that away. Let's see. So we were talking about New York City as a character in our films. Ali, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but if there's anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think I really like that idea that, you were all talking about how sometimes our films feel like they're from another time. I think the cool thing that's been happening with Dancing on My Own is that a lot of, when we filmed it, we didn't know that the coronavirus was going to happen. We had no idea that it would change New York City nightlife or the way we interact with people or the way we gather as a community. So the film ended up becoming almost like a historical document in a way, which was so fascinating and totally was not the intent at the beginning. But a lot of people who are in the queer community and in the kind of nightlife community were, watching the film when it first premiered last month, and a lot of people were just like so emotional because at the end of the day, it's like, oh, remember when we used to dance together? Remember when we had a nightclub? Remember bars? All these things that we honestly just took totally for granted, and it was so fun to kind of show people like, hey, we did this. This is what we created in this big crazy city. New York is a beast, and so to be able to kind of make your mark on New York in some way, and then to have a film about it, I mean, it was such a dream. So
yes, for sure. Oh my goodness, I really hope that we can have another bubble tea party soon.
And I think it's interesting that a lot of the people here, I think, are not necessarily native New Yorkers. And they all, and me being a native New Yorker, I think I have a different perspective and a different relationship with the city than everybody else. Because when you come in from the outside, my observation is that you fall in love with the city in a way that people that grew up in New York don't. Everyone that I know from New York that I grew up with has moved out of the city. And I don't know, I think maybe the glamour of and the experience of being in the city is if you grow up with it, has less of an allure. yeah, I don't know. That's just, I guess, my take on it. I go back and forth constantly, so it's, I don't know. I kind of have at both worlds at this point, but yeah, I don't know. And then there's something about the boroughs versus Manhattan that's so different. Places like Queens and Brooklyn um, that have a very distinct and character about them. Yeah, and I think for me in my film, it was more about Brooklyn than the city at large, and specifically parts of Brooklyn that aren't hyper gentrified. Not I don't want to make a discussion about gentrification, but there's still a lot of communities that have native New Yorkers, and they're quite different in the vibe and feeling. And, I sort of wanted to. I mean, the film takes place in Bay Ridge, and I don't think you see all that much of that neighborhood in Brooklyn in the film, but just in general, it's like the neighborhoods in Brooklyn are very distinct from one another. And I think generally people have a sort of a vague idea of like, oh yeah, Brooklyn, Williamsburg, it's like a little Disneyland. But the Brooklyn that I grew up with was quite different than that.
I think also one of the reasons I really liked New York is because it was so similar to home, like Bombay. Surprisingly, like it just like sight, sound, smells, like everything just at you all at once is very similar to like what I grew up in. So like out of all the cities in America, like New York felt closest to home.
Yeah. I think what Chris was saying with like even the specificity of neighborhoods was really important. And I actually got the sense, I had a sense of where we were in your film. I think that there is like a very large population of like working class Chinese in the city, and I think you did a really good job of showcasing just like that these lives are here, and that it's not all just Williamsburg, as you're saying, or like transplants. It's like these are people who have been here, and this is their lives, and you can tell even just like in the way you had your set dressing. It was like these people have been here. This is like that, like not necessarily hoarder, but definitely like we collect things, and it's like a house full of stuff, kind of little apartment in New York. And I think you did a good job of really getting us there. If you haven't been to New York, you were definitely transported. Another question that we have, well, I guess it's not a question. Somebody would like John to know from the audience that they really enjoyed how you revealed the father's lack of presence in his son's life with the turkey. And it's a really good comedic moment, which again, like in this block of films, I think that it's a good mixture. We have like both comedy, docs, dramas, really more serious things, and then like we have this turkey here, which really brought it home for me. I guess maybe something a little bit. Another observation actually I have from your film is that doorknob came off, and it was like, I wonder if that was real, because it you sure, I'm surprised.
Yeah, that was the first day, first shot, first take of the entire film, and my kids go to that school, and so I've used that door, and probably thousands of people have used that door for like 40 years. And in that moment, that doorknob came off. I pulled it straight out, and I don't know if you saw it, but I looked straight into the camera, and everyone like hit their forehead, and then just kind of went with it. But yeah, it was completely by accident, and so we knew that was an auspicious sign that we should continue with the
yes.
film. Yes. And then the turkey hand, it was actually my daughter. This is like, see, the material is just all from real life. So yeah, it was my daughter that wrote it, and like she blatantly left my name off, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to spend more time with my daughter.
That's real. Like she actually.
Oh, it's real. Yeah, it's like basically therapy for me making this film. So yeah.
Oh, Well, hopefully, I hope your relationship has improved with your children.
No, it's good. It's good now, but I just thought it was very funny.
Yes, those are really great moments. I want to move on to casting, actually, and that process for y'all. I mean, and for Ali, maybe it's more so about how you picked your subjects, because it's a fairly large group, and also just like in terms of access, how that how you worked with them to get these really honest interviews.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone who's seen the film, we go deep. We talk to the founders of Bubble Tea, who are all very busy, who all do other amazing things in their lives. We have fine artists, we have fashion designers, we have makeup artists for major musicians. I mean, it was kind of a crazy thing to coordinate it all, and the fact that everybody sort of donated their time and wanted to be part of this community film was super, super dope. So that was just like, they made themselves available, which was amazing. And then in terms of the community, we actually filmed at a party. So it was pretty wild. We were, I don't know if anyone's been to Elsewhere in Bushwick, but it's this venue. Anyway, so we were able to film with 2 camera crews on the same day. So we had a camera crew filming all the stage performances, and then we had another team in the back doing portraits and those sort of mini interviews in the film. And we had me running back and forth between 2 camera crews over the course of a 6-hour night. So it was wild, but it was really fun. And we had reached out to a bunch of people beforehand, but on the day it was kind of so fast and furious. We honestly wanted to get probably twice as many people as we had interviewed, but we were really happy to get the people we got. And same thing, like a bunch of different artists from the community. And again, like it is everyone. It's not just a bunch of artists. There's also, computer programmers. There's, there's, like I said, designers. And then there's also actors as well. We had a really, lovely cameo from one of the community friends, Bowen Yang from Saturday Night Live. And it was just great. It's one of those films that it was easy to cast because it's just a bunch of people that you already know. It's the community, and it's all your friends.
Yes, yeah, that's great. I think that really shows in how vulnerable everyone was able to be on screen. Like some of those comments, stories were very heartbreaking, heartwarming, and also, it's the truth and reality of being perhaps an Asian person, child of an immigrant, and perhaps a queer person, of those intersections. Yes, thank you. For everyone else casting in your own films, what was that process like? Leah, you star in the film that you wrote, so actually a multi-hyphenate hat wearer here. Yeah, could we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So we actually got really lucky with the shopkeeper. So one of my co-writer, she had worked with him on like another short film. So when we were thinking of a guy to play, that part, she remembered him, and then he did like an audition, and then we were like, okay, he fits it. Because otherwise, I don't know how we would have found someone, because he wasn't even like on any online platforms like Actors Access or Backstage. We wouldn't have found him. And it was hard to find someone of that age, and so specifically like Indian, but not like Indian born in America, Indian born in India. So it was a very like niche sort of casting. So I feel really lucky that we got him. And then of course, like everyone else, we auditioned, and then Zenobia Shroff, who plays my mother, she's a family friend, and she read the script and she wanted to be part of it. So she joined as well. So it was a nice. We got lucky.
I would say.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you bring up a point about like casting. I guess maybe like Asian, or maybe specifically South Asian characters, and perhaps
I think
like
with everyone, there's such specific, like sometimes people just generalize with all, types of Asians, whether it's Indian or like Korean or Chinese, anything. But there's even within those countries, there's so many types of people. And that is where like the diversity truly lies. And, I feel like in America, like there are not so many of these subsects, or like it's harder to find actors in those. Like literally, I remember actually one day Snigdha and I were like, we went to find like someone to fit that grandmother role. We were like literally walking up and down the streets of Jersey City. Where was it? I don't remember. Somewhere in Jersey. And I like went to random old women and asked them if they wanted to be in my film. We were like, okay, that one could pass as like looking as my grandmother. And then we got lucky, and then we actually found someone who is a professional actor. But we did walk up and down these streets.
Yeah, that last part is really important. Not that we don't have enough grandmothers from India, like first generation Indian grandmothers. It was just hard to find them as actors.
And they also had to match, like kind of match me in some way, if possible. So it was just very specific.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chris, would you like to touch on your casting? I think your
I think
son
I
and
can,
father.
Yeah, I can echo their sentiments and the challenge of casting. The person who played the son, Kayvon, is his name, and I just put out a open casting call on Actors Access, I think, for that particular role, and he was one of the first people that applied. And when he read, he had a great performance. He took direction well. He had, amazing eyes. Very charismatic kid. So I think I got very lucky with him. But with casting the father, that was very challenging. And luckily, the producer of the film was friends with Gary, who ended up playing the father. And in terms of his look and his performance and everything, we were very fortunate. He's not a actor by trade, so I think he works in advertising actually. And but he's a musician. He's always been involved in creative endeavors, and I felt like I could work with someone that like that, and it ended up being great. But trying to cast that role was really difficult because just all the roles were a bit challenging because our options were limited. There are not that many people. There's not like an explosion of Asian actors in general. And then if you start to fall outside of like, okay, so they all fall into certain tropes, and to find a cast of characters outside of those is pretty difficult, I think.
Yeah, I think you did a great job. I feel like the relationship between the father and son was actually really, really sweet and pure. And I think that the actors both, I mean, hearing that, the father doesn't act really normally is just kind of surprising. So that's excellent. I'm glad that you're able to find some really good cast members here. John, you also starred in your own film. You also produced, edited, multi-hyphenate as well.
Yeah, I wanted to say that, Leah, I thought you were really great, and that Samir character, he was really great too. I was like, wow.
He was really good. Like, I loved him. He genuinely felt like a grandpa to me.
Yeah. I thought that bond was terrific. So for our film, we saw some really great actors. I think the most fun was casting the children in the class, and because it was just chaos. And my son, I married, a different culture. And so having a mixed race kid, it was kind of tough to find a child that would represent him and in my mind. And so I ended up casting him. And then we saw a lot of great Asian American male actors as well. But then just that bond wasn't there because my son is not an actor. And so it was kind of like a last resort, because this is the first thing I've ever been in as well, because I didn't want to direct my own thing. But the most natural reaction that he's going to have, he's just going to have such a discomfort with anyone else. So we just decided to do that, and And so a lot of those reactions that you see on his face is just basically me holding his like stuffed animal, and you know, little tricks like that. And so yeah, it was a lot of fun casting. There's several characters, and so it took a little while to find some actors, but it was mostly a very enjoyable experience.
Yeah, your son's smile at the end is so precious. It's like the biggest smile I have ever seen on a child. Great. So I realized that I had so many other questions, but our time is nigh. We could talk so much about directing your own films and acting in it. Like that is a process that we could probably talk all day about. As well as, you know, the future of like some of these characters. I have so many questions about where they end up, but guess we'll have to go into that perhaps later in another time in the Twitterverse maybe. But the last question I want to ask y'all before we sign off is just what are y'all up to? You know, it's hard times right now, so if you're, you know, chilling, that's also very good for your well-being. But yeah, if there's any projects you want to shout out, anything.
I'm just working on making Black Goat Sun into a feature, which it was originally written as. So we're just looking to financing for that and workshopping scripts. So.
I am similarly pitching a show, a TV show on the queer Asian community in New York and kind of the underground rave scene based on my own experiences. And that's called All I Want Is Everything. Exciting developments for that. And then in terms of the rest of my life, I have a book out right now called Amboy, Recipes from the Filipino American Dream. I wrote with my very good friend, Alvin Kailan, who is the chef behind Egg Slut. And yeah, so let's see, book that. And then major career milestone. This past week, I just directed Meryl Streep for a show for NBC. So that was really exciting. She is as lovely as you think, and is truly a class act. So that was a moment that I was so I was like, pinch me, this is great. So 2020 has been a crazy bad year, but also has some bright spots. So it's been a good year.
Excellent.
Oh, and I guess in terms of socials and everything, if anyone wants to know about Dancing on My Own or follow the film as it plays through festivals, you can follow me on Instagram at Alexandra Cuerdo. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, thanks, Ali. Yes, we also have that commented in the comment sections there, so easy click and follow, everybody. Who's next?
I don't know who's next in like my screen versus your screen. So, but so like I've been mainly focusing on the acting front since I've been back. But Corona has kind of put everything in limbo. Like I was supposed to act in an Amazon series, Amazon India, and then we were supposed to shoot in April, and then we went into lockdown. So has been indefinitely. But I've been working on like a reality TV parody series. Like I started it as part of like this Soho House members competition, and it placed in the top 10. So now I'm continuing it. So it's just on Instagram, something fun to like do while I'm at home doing nothing. And like I'm writing a bit, but as an actor, you kind of just either have to make it at home on your own or wait for sets to open up. Oh, but I'm also writing songs. I'm a singer-songwriter. So both of those, trying to keep it going. And yeah, you can follow me as well and the film. So you can follow me at Leah Khambata and the film at their short film.
Also Spotify.
Yeah, I have on Spotify, Apple Music, all the same. Just look for my name, Leah Khambata.
Excellent. Yeah, Leah, what was the singer-songwriter for the closing song in the film as well, right? I was like, hold on, how are you doing all this?
I wrote it with my friend, and then it's me singing, yeah.
Amazing. Snigdha?
I am writing my first feature, which is also just like Chris, like an adaptation of the short that was scheduled to be filmed this year, which is a story about a South Asian birth mother, and it talks about themes of adoption, race, sexuality, parenting, most importantly. Yeah, I mean, that's been my focus this year. Hopefully next year I can start like pitching, taking it forward.
Fantastic, exciting. Don.
Yeah, so the film that I made it's basically a portion of the third act of a feature film. So I'm finishing up the script for that, and so it'll be sort of like 3 generations of fathers and sons, and so it's just a larger in scope film. That's basically what I'm working on.
Fantastic. And I think for John, they can follow you at your website in the comment section. So I would like to thank everybody here for spending time with us on this lovely Sunday. And hopefully y'all can check out, and in the audience, check out some of the films. If you haven't checked out these, there's more in this block. More than just this, I know, right? It's wild. There's a lot of good shorts this year. You have until 11:59 p.m. Eastern time to finish up those films. And again, thank you all for joining me. I will see everybody here maybe later today. But yes, thank you all for tuning in to the last day of AAIF 43.
Did you know that film, television, and digital content contribute over $9 billion to the local economy and employ over 130,000? That's money in the pocket of your local business.
Our first big order was from a film shoot.
It might bring us 1,000 pieces in an order.
We've doubled our business. We've added more trucks and more routes.
And that means more jobs in the neighborhood.
So the next time you see a shoot, know that their dollars are going into our local economy. The film business works in New York because the film business works for New York.
Oh.